Alright, what's up everyone? Welcome back to Compound Interesting. This is Emil, and in today's video we're having a look at if I can only buy 3 stocks, which stocks they would be and why. Now I don't want you to just focus on the actual stocks themselves. I want you to pay attention to the method and my conviction to why I'm choosing those 3 stocks or why they suit me. Just because those stocks suit me or their stocks I think will do well doesn't necessarily mean that it is true or that it will suit you either. So like always, make sure you're coming up with your own decisions and your own reasoning behind every stock pick. But these are the ones that I'm most interested in right now, and I'm really excited about these 3 stocks. And I had a few revelations about these stocks over the weekend that has just made my conviction in them so much stronger, and that's the reason why I'm so excited to bring you this video today. So before I give you the stock picks themselves, I just want to give you some categorizations of stocks that I'm interested in, the type of stocks that I'm interested in if I were only to buy 3. Now this is for my style of investing, which is kind of growth investing. So this kind of style might not suit you. However, this is some categorizations that I'm very interested in having in each of these stocks. So the first one is all the 3 of these stocks must have the possibility of at least 10xing in the next 5 to 10 years. So for these stocks to be able to 10x, that would need a average annual increase of 60% a year. So that's a very difficult task, but I think with each of these stocks that is more than possible. So the next essential for the stock picks today is there's a low chance of bankruptcy in my eyes for each of these stocks. So for all of these stocks, I'm not looking for a quick 2-3 year turnaround play or any sort of short term. I'm looking at least 5 years, if not 10, if not 20, if not 30. I'm looking at multiple decades out. That's the kind of stock investing I'm interested in. High growth for many decades out. All these companies, I believe, have quite a low probability of going bankrupt in that time frame. And the other thing, this isn't so much an essential, but it's just something I want to mention. With all these stocks, I don't really care what happens in the short term. I think it's more than possible with each of these stocks that they can drop 50% or more than 50% in the next 1 to 2 years, in which case I'll just be buying more. But I have no interest in selling in the next under 5 years for any of these stocks, so I don't care what happens in the short term. If they drop a lot in the short term, then I'll be buying more, most likely. But for the most part, I want to build up my position, and I'm happy at the price I'm paying now, even though to a lot of people, probably most people, these stocks seem way overvalued. Alright, the last category, and I'll give you my first stock pick of the day. The last essential about each of these companies is they all started their own segment, and they're all the market leader in that segment because they started that segment. So they're the innovators, the pioneers of their own market segments, but they do have some competition and copycats. Okay, so the first stock for today is Square stock, ticker symbol SQ. So I've done a video on Square before, I'll link it up there, but in that video I kind of came to the conclusion that it wasn't for me at the time. I didn't really know, I guess I hadn't really dug enough into the company, and for some reason I didn't make the purchase at that time. However, when I said I would be interested in picking up the shares if it dropped, and during the coronavirus crash it did drop, and it dropped quite significantly, and I picked up a couple of shares. After digging more and more into the company, I continued buying shares. Even now at pretty much all-time highs for Square, I'm still interested in picking up shares. Even though I'm up almost 100% on my original shares, I'm still interested in buying more shares because I think that was a bit of a flash crash, and I'm not sure how likely it is would get back down to there. So if you don't know what Square is, I'll give a very brief explanation, and then I'll share my revelations that I had just before I went to bed the other night about the actual size and the scope of the addressable market for Square and how much value it could really bring to the entire world, and some things that can really send this stock absolutely sky high. Okay, so imagine you're a business owner, you're just starting out, and you're just, a kind of a mom and pop or a pop-up store. Before Square came along, you could either invest a lot of money for a manual point of sale system like those card readers. It's like $1,200 plus $1,200 annually on average. That's how much it costs, plus some transaction fees every time someone makes a purchase at your store. So that was your first choice to do that, or else just use cash, only accept cash. So this is for micro merchants. So Jack Dorsey saw this opportunity and said, well, people don't need separate computers to take card payments. Everyone has a computer in their pocket. So we invented that little thing you can plug into your phone and accept card payments. And it's also perfect for small businesses. There's so much amazing stuff that you can do with that technology on your phone or on your iPad. You can accept credit cards, you can manage your employees, your payroll, your timesheets, everything you can do through that app and through Square. In my eyes, it's such a better service than the old card point of sale systems that are in most restaurants or shops. I think the Square technology is so much better and so much more useful for businesses. But at the moment, for small to medium sized businesses, because Square takes a flat 3% on every transaction, it's more expensive if you're like a larger business. So at the moment, it kind of only suits the smaller businesses, the pop-up stores, and people are just starting out in business and don't want to go through the whole rigmarole of getting a cabled Visa card reader or whatever. However, this is one of the revelations I had the other night. I dug in a bit further into Square's total addressable market, and I kind of in my head I was like, surely they don't want to just only have the very small micro merchants. Surely Square could expand to the medium-sized businesses or even the larger businesses. And I started getting pretty carried away in my head. Because Square's ecosystem is so much better than the traditional point-of-sale systems, I was like, maybe Square are looking into expanding into larger businesses. Now, obviously they would have to bring down their transaction fees for each transaction that the store or restaurant, or if it's a large restaurant, they would have to probably bring down the transaction prices to a fairer price if they want to address that market. But Square are well aware of this and definitely have their eyes on this medium to larger business segment, and this is where there's an enormous amount of revenue opportunity for Square, and I don't think people realize this whatsoever. So here you can see on this graph, they're mostly going after the micro merchants now that earn less than 250,000 a year, and you can see the number of sellers is quite large, but the number of revenue is only 500 billion for that size of sellers. They're kind of in the SMBs a bit. However, when you get into this kind of mid-market stuff, what they're going for in the mid to long-term future, that's where the extreme amount of money is. Look, 3 trillion in the US annually, 1.2 for the small medium-sized businesses, and 1.3 trillion for the mid-market, the higher mid-market segment. I think even in the future they can go after the enterprise side. I think they could go after the enterprise side. So that would be the likes of, say, McDonald's. If Square made some sort of deal with McDonald's in 5-10 years where they processed their transactions and had everything much more neatly more organized for McDonald's or some other huge department store chain or fast food chain or whatever, or an up and coming chain like Texas Roadhouse, I think there's a possibility that they could even enter into that market and take it over, just because of the advantages of having that ecosystem where everything is neatly and easily organized into one seller ecosystem on your Square device. And now obviously they're going after the mid-market, and this is going to be probably a few years away. This has enormous revenue potential. So this is a graph of their total addressable market. So you can see the transaction profits, so that's how much they make out of each transaction. So that would be the 3% for each transaction. The software and Square Capital, another huge growth beast for Square, offering loans to businesses, to small businesses. So Square have all your data and how much money you're making, how much money you have, blah, 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 how much money your business has. They have all the data about your business. So they know exactly, using machine learning, they're able to figure out exactly if you're the right candidate to give a loan to and how much interest you should get and what size of a loan is feasible for you to repay. And this is perfect for microloans, for those kind of people who don't want to go to the bank. So Square have an enormous opportunity there. Anyway, we're not going to go too deep into Square because we have another 2 stocks to get through. And I swear I'm not going to go as deeply into the other 2 stocks as I am with Square, but just because I had a lot of revelations about Square over the last weekend. So that's why I've picked up another couple of shares today, actually. And I will continue to be picking up shares over the next number of weeks and if it drops again, I would be absolutely loading the boat. But anyway, oh yeah, I wanted to show you this graph as well. As you can see, the 2014 cohort is like when this business joined. So as you can see, the 2014 cohort is in the gray, the light gray. I just wanted to show you this graph because I wanted to show you that each individual cohort is spending more and more money with Square. So it's not just that they're getting more and more small businesses on board. It also is that Square is getting more and more money out of each of those small businesses. So it's a win-win. Square helps those small businesses succeed by offering loans and better services than their competitors. And likewise, Square gets more money out of these small businesses each and every year. And they're adding more and more small businesses each and every year. So that's why I wanted to show you that graph. So as you can see, they're bringing on more and more large sellers. And that's where the real money is. So their total addressable market for the Square Up product is $85 billion. If they could capture the entire market right now, that's how much it'd be worth. And with a market cap of 40 billion, this is looking very enticing if Square can even capture a quarter of this revenue. However, we haven't even begun on the other side of Square's business, which is of course the Cash App, which is growing even faster. So if you don't know what the Cash App is, I'm sure you do, but say you're not American, if you're living in Ireland like me, think of Revolut. It's pretty much the same as Revolut. So Revolut copied Square basically, but you can instantly send money to your friends just using your phone number. But the way they're monetizing it is by bringing out extra project features. So they're giving you this free service where you can transact money to your friends or via phone numbers. So they're giving that free, really useful, easy service and selling you other more monetizable services like investing in stocks or buying Bitcoin or using their cash card, which is basically a debit card. And every time you use that debit card, Square gets a transaction fee for doing that transaction for you. And you don't pay the transaction fee. It's the seller. I have another couple of revelations about Square that I don't think anyone else has ever talked about on YouTube. But the first of which, it's a bit of a moonshot, but it could happen, potentially. So in the same way that Square offers business loans to their small businesses, I think the Cash App will potentially begin offering personal loans to their users. As they can, if you've been using the Cash App for a few years, and they can see all your history and see that you're never really going into debt, and they might get more information from your bank statements or whatever. But I think Square have the opportunity. I'm not sure if anyone has ever thought of that before, but that Square could actually offer personal loans to people. Now, is that a bit of a moonshot? I don't know, but I want to add to this moonshot and make it even greater. I think maybe in a decade's time, Square will be able to offer you a mortgage. So you wouldn't be getting a mortgage from a bank, you would be getting it directly from Square. Now, if you stop for a second to think how enormous the mortgage industry is and the revenue potential Square could get from offering mortgages, it kind of blows your mind. Now, that's a bit of a pipe dream, I'll admit. I don't know if that's at all feasible, but I think it is possible. Let me know in the comments what you think of that absolute pipe dream. If you think it's crazy or if you think it's possible. Bit of a moonshot, but that's what I was thinking the other night. I was like, boom, if I own Square, that's what I'd be thinking anyway. Another market that Square is ripe for disruption, and which they've talked about and which is not a moonshot at all, is cross-border transactions. So if you're living in Ireland or the UK, or I think a couple of other European countries, you've probably seen those Revolut cards, which is basically like Square. However, Revolut offers some services that Square doesn't yet. So with Revolut, you can, if you go traveling, you can withdraw money from an ATM for free, up to about €200 to €500 a month, depending on what tier you get, which is extremely useful. And anytime you buy something in a restaurant abroad, you're not paying transaction amounts. If you're paying in euro, you're not paying a fee to pay in euro into the local currency. You're getting the interbank rate, like the actual exchange rate, using a Revolut card. So I think this is a service that Square will be offering in the actual near future, unlike the last couple of points. But it will also allow you to send, which is already possible, send money internationally between two Square users. I think you can already do it from the US to the UK or vice versa. You can send money using the Square platform, which is fantastic and extremely useful because cross-border transactions and the FX market is like in the trillions of dollars every single day that is passed cross borders and foreign exchange markets. It's absolutely insane. But Square are on the edge, and this industry is ripe for disruption, and they just need to follow Revolut's formula. Revolut kind of copied Square, and now Square can kind of copy Revolut. Right, the last thing I want to say about Square and how I think it will be able to get that 10x valuation into the hundreds of billions of market cap. Well, firstly, we can look at Visa. Visa has a price to sales ratio of 17. 17, that is an enormous price to sales ratio. Square's price to sales ratio is about 7, and it hovers an average of around 6. Granted, Visa's price to earnings ratio is under 30, and Square's price to earnings ratio is like 130. However, Square haven't really turned on the profitability yet. Once they start to reach the kind of levels that Visa are at in terms of expansion, their earnings is going to be insane. They're going to be similar to Visa in their earnings. So if they can get anywhere near to the price to sales that Visa has right now, that's an enormous market cap, because they're only just starting. Visa's gross profit and net profit percentage is fantastic as well. So we do have to take that into account. And can Square also get to that kind of profitability even percentage wise? I'm not so sure. However, it just goes to show that even such a huge old company has such a massive price to sales ratio, that when you factor that in to the potential growth that Square has, if you add that kind of price to sales ratio onto Square's market cap, the numbers are insane. Another company with enormous price to earnings and price to sales ratio that Square is also quite similar to is Shopify. So Shopify actually offer point of sale system software as well as Square. So they're a competitor to Square. And similarly, Square has copied Shopify in the fact that Square offers their own kind of online website shops. So you can actually create, somewhat like Shopify, you can create an online store using Square. Now, once you look at the price to earnings and price to sales ratio for Shopify, and you factor in that Square has such a smaller amount, but it has so much other stuff going on with it, it gets a little bit insane. And when you factor in Visa has such a high price to sales ratio, and it has nowhere near the growth potential that Square does, I just see this company as very, very undervalued. If you're looking at a 5 to 10 years down the road, I think Square is going to be in the hundreds and hundreds of billions in market cap. So that's why I've been so excited for Square. Now, finally, we're finished with Square. Let's get on to the next stock. God, that could have been a video in itself. So if you appreciate my analysis on Square, I'd hugely appreciate if you could smash the thumbs up button. Subscribe if you haven't already. I bring on videos like this every other day. I really hope you're enjoying the video. I probably should have made this just one video about Square and the other two separate, but we're halfway through now, so let's just get on with it. I hope you're enjoying this anyway. So the next one, we're not going to go so in depth with the next stock that if I could only invest in, this would be the one, is Tesla. So I'm not going to go too deep on Tesla because there's millions of videos, and I've made many videos about Tesla before. I'll link a few of them up here as we're going. But the amount of sectors that Tesla is disrupting is absolutely insane. Even with a market cap of $180 billion, I think it's 160 to 180 billion depending when you're looking at it. But even with that market cap, I do think it can 10x in the next 5 to 10 years. Some people might think I'm insane, and other people might think, oh yeah, that's obvious. So they're disrupting Uber with the robotaxi network. They're disrupting the solar energy business with the vehicle to grid software that hasn't even been revealed yet. So if you want to see that video about the potential of Tesla becoming an energy company, where your Tesla can harness energy from the sun, store it in the battery in the Tesla, and then sell it back to the grid at night when electricity is expensive, earning you money every night passively. Watch this video right here. But they're disrupting that industry potentially. Hasn't been announced yet, but that's the rumors anyway. The solar industry, the robotaxi industry, cars in general. They will be the best selling cars in the world, in my opinion. Their cars are just so much better than every other car, and their mission statement is absolutely incredible. Their mission statement is to accelerate the world's transition to sustainable energy. So their cars are so much better. The cars have two potential ways that they can actually earn you, the driver or the owner, passive income. They look the nicest, they're the best for the environment, they're the leaders. You can watch Netflix while you're driving. They're the leaders in autonomous driving, so you don't even have to drive the car. You can just go on your computer, go on your phone, or do some work or whatever. They're so far ahead in every aspect of electric vehicles that it's going to take a long time for anyone to catch up to the same levels. So they will be the best selling car, and I imagine Tesla Model 3s to be the iPhone of the future, in which it's one of the best selling products by revenue of all time. Likely enough that Tesla will reach in the trillions of dollars of market cap, which is pretty insane, over the next decade or so. And I think the likelihood of bankruptcy is low. Tesla have quite a lot of cash on their balance sheet. Elon Musk can acquire capital whenever he needs it, and everyone in the Tesla team is so committed to their mission statement that they'll do anything in their power, working 100 hours a week to get anything that Elon Musk wants done. So for those reasons, I don't think Tesla's going to go bankrupt. However, I do think or know that Tesla is going to be a volatile stock for the next number of years, and I don't give a crap if it goes down 50 or 60% in the short term over the next few years. In that case, I will just be buying up more shares. As I mentioned at the start of the video, all I care is about 5 to 10 years to 20 years down the road, what the price is then, because I will not be selling no matter what the price is before that. Alright, so that was just a quick one about Tesla. Now finally, the last stock. What is the last stock? Another stock I'm really excited about. And this is one that I have made a video on before, and the stock is Spotify. Now the reason I'm so bullish about Spotify is their recent acquisition of the Joe Rogan podcast, which is the best-selling podcast, the most downloaded podcast of all time, the most popular podcast. And if you didn't know, Spotify paid $100 million to sign Joe Rogan exclusively to the Spotify network. What does that mean? So the only place you'll be able to watch the Joe Rogan podcast is on Spotify. And Spotify are actually adding video to the Spotify network, which I also think is huge. So now they're going to be competing with YouTube in the podcast space big time, because people sometimes like to watch podcasts. Like sometimes in the Joe Rogan podcast, he'll put up a video and they'll talk about the video or an image or whatever. And I'm so bullish about podcasts. I believe podcasts will be the radio of the future. There's still millions of people listening to the radio every day, the older generations than us. But as we come into our earning years, we're not going to be listening to the radio. No one's going to be listening to the radio. Be logical. It's going to be podcasts. So there's a huge monetization potential for Spotify in podcasts. And I think it's just going to be an absolute game changer when your music and your podcasts are all in the same app. You can switch between the two, and I've already started using podcasts on Spotify, which I didn't do before, and it's so much better. The podcast app I was using before was pretty clunky and just kind of useless, and I can't wait for the Joe Rogan podcast to be moved over to Spotify, so I can exclusively listen to my podcast on Spotify. So that's a huge revelation. So if you want to go more in depth on that revelation, make sure to watch this video all about Spotify. It goes much more in depth and gives you my full bullish thesis around Spotify stock. But lastly, about Spotify, they're the market leader. I think it's going to be difficult for anyone else to catch up with them. They have amazing algorithms that always offer you the best recommendations for music. So they're ahead in that field because they have the most data out of any of the competition, ahead of Apple and ahead of YouTube Music or any other Amazon, Alexa Music, whatever. Spotify are the leaders in the music space, and they will be the leaders in the podcasting space as well, in my opinion. So for those reasons, I think Spotify has an enormous chance to 10x at least and become a multi-$100 billion stock as well, because at the moment it's only in the $30 billion range. It's actually less than Square, so it's $34 billion and Square's $40 billion. So I think these can both get to the multi-$100 billion in market cap. And the reason I think so for Spotify is I see a lot of similarities between Spotify now and Netflix 5 to 10 years ago. Just like Spotify is, Netflix was the leader in TV streaming, and that's become such an enormous industry. And Spotify are just getting into that, are just finding their stride in this enormously growing music streaming industry. No one's going to be buying CDs or listening to music on the radio or downloading music from iTunes. It's all going to be streamed because it's just so much easier and more useful than any of the other options out there at the moment. So I think this will be the market leader. Similarly to the way Netflix has a market cap of around $500 billion, I can see Spotify getting to those numbers in a decade's time. So as I mentioned, I'm not going to go so deep in Spotify because I did go pretty deep in that video that I already linked up there. But I also think there's a low probability for Spotify going bankrupt. They have a nice balance sheet, good amount of cash, and they're the market leader in their industry and an innovative company. And I also like them because they're European, and it kind of exposes me to the European market. I like to see Europeans doing well, being a European myself. Right, so if you enjoyed that video, I'd hugely appreciate if you could smash the thumbs up button. It really helps this small channel get off the ground. I really hope you enjoyed this video. I found this one really fun to make, and I hope it offered you a lot of value. If you haven't already, make sure to subscribe. And if you're already a subscriber, make sure you've hit the notification bell so you get an update every time I release a new video. I really hope you enjoyed the video, and I can't wait to see you in the next one. Thank you so much. Goodbye.